Hello Mr. Edwards, my name is Jonathan Lam, and in this video I will be explaining your rights regarding the sale of Upton Abbey and the position of Miss Amelia in this video. So now we'll begin considering your position even though you are not the legal owner. We know that your father, Sir William, held the legal title of Upton Abbey. You are not the legal owner and you do not hold any legal estate in the land. Instead, legal title of the property has been held by two of your sisters, which is Charlotte and Caroline. Under Section 1, Subsection 3, any proprietary rights that do not amount to legal estates may still be established as having equitable interest. The law does recognize that a person may acquire an equitable interest in land through a constructive trust. As according to the case law of National Provincial Bank against Ainsworth, proprietary rights are capable of binding third parties. Therefore, we must first determine if you have acquired equitable proprietary rights in that property. A constructive notice may arise where there is a common intention that a person will have a right in the property and the person acts to their detriment in reliance upon that. In 1985, your father told you, "This will always be your home and you need never worry about leaving." What matters here is that those words by your father will provide you assurance that you could stay there for as long as you wanted. So these words indicated that it is more than a simple permission to stay, but a long-term promise that is made. In addition, your long-term residency in the West Wing also proves that you had a common intention regarding your continued occupation of the wing. Through the assurance, reliance is established where you spend a substantial amount of money for the repairing and maintenance work of Upton Abbey. This work done amount to serious detriment as they involve years of hard work and also financial spending by you. A case that can be referred to this is actually the case of Pascoe against Turner, where a man assured his partner a house was as much yours as mine. She spent money and time improving the property, and her rights were eventually recognized by the court. The treatment can also be compared to a very similar case law related to your circumstances now, which is the case of Gillett against Holt, where in this case a man devoted many years of work to an estate because he believed promises that he would inherit property. The court accepted that he had relied on those promises and had amounted to significant detriment. Likewise, in the case of Grizzly against Cook, the court held that where a promise is made and the claimant acts consistently with that promise, reliance may often be presumed. There is also a strong argument that you have acquired rights through proprietary estoppel. However, unlike constructive trust that I've just mentioned, the remedy is discretionary and you may not be granted a right to remain in the property. Instead, you may be granted a monetary remedy. Therefore, there is a strong stance that a constructive trust was indeed in your favor, providing you equitable interest in the property. The issue now, however, is whether that equitable interest continues to bind the property after its sale to Regent Estates Limited. Now, let us assume that Upton Abbey is registered land. The concern now here is whether your equitable right binds Regent Estates Limited after the sale. Under Schedule 3, Paragraph 2 of the Land Registration Act of 2002, certain interests can bind purchasers if the holder is in actual occupation of the property. This is actually known as an overriding interest under Schedule 3, Paragraph 2 of the Land Registration Act of 2002. Certain interests can bind purchasers if the holder is in actual occupation of the property. The leading case here is the case of Williams and Greensbank against Boland. Mrs. Boland had an equitable interest in the family home and was physically occupying it. The House of Lords then held that her interest bound the purchaser. The same principle here may actually assist you in this case. So we now look at a very important point, and that is whether you were in actual occupation. Regent Estates argued that you were absent because you were in the hospital when they inspected the property. However, based on past cases like Choka against Choka, where in this case a woman remained in actual occupation even though she was absent from the property while giving birth in hospital. So similarly, you went to the hospital for a surgery and your belongings and furniture remained in the West Wing. So I believe that it shows that you intended to return even after your surgery. This can be a very strong argument that you actually remain in actual occupation. Furthermore, Regent Estates Limited inspected the property before purchasing it, but did not enter the west wing because it was locked. Had they undertaken a reasonably careful inspection, the locked entrance and evidence of occupation would likely have prompted further inquiries. A similar situation like this arose in the past case of Kingsnorth Finance against TZ, where the purchaser failed to investigate signs indicating that another person occupied the property. The court held that reasonable inquiries should have been made. Therefore, if your interest had not been overreached, there is a strong argument that it would have constituted an overriding interest under Schedule 3, Paragraph 2 of the Land Registration Act of 2002, and would eventually have bound Regent Estates Limited. Well, despite all of this, unfortunately, we have a problem here, and that is overreaching. So let me explain to you what it is. So overreaching is a doctrine that allows a purchaser to buy land free from certain equitable interests. Instead of continuing to affect the land, the equitable interest is transferred from the land to the sale proceeds. Overreaching is governed by Sections 2 and 27 of the Law Property Act of 1925. As argued by academic commentators like Jackson and Nicola in the article of Overreaching in Registered Land Law, overreaching actually ensures that equitable interest is shifted from the land to the purchase money, allowing purchasers to take land free from those interests and prompting certainty in land transactions. Here, in this situation, Charlotte and Caroline owned the property jointly. The purchase money was paid to both of them, and this satisfies the statutory requirements for overreaching. The leading authority is City of London Building Society against flat, and in this case, elderly parents had an equitable interest and were living in the property. However, because the sale proceeds were paid to two trustees, their interest was overreached and did not bind the purchaser. Unlike the situation presented in the case of Golden, the doctrine of overreaching takes priority. Therefore, even I had successfully established that you had actual occupation of the property, actual occupation cannot prevent an overreaching transaction. And if overreaching happens, the equitable interest is detached from the land and being transferred to the purchase money received by the trustee, where this case it is to Regent Estates Limited. And so this case presents the strongest argument available to Regent Estates Limited. However, this does not mean that you live empty-handed. Your equitable interest is transferred from the land into the purchase money and may be enforceable against the trustees who receive the proceeds of sale. Now, what if the land is unregistered? If the property had remained in the Hill family for generations and had never previously been registered, the sale to Regent Estates Limited would trigger compulsory first registration under Section 4 of the Land Registration Act of 2002. And in registered land protection for a person with equitable interest who is in actual occupation under Schedule 3, Paragraph 2 of the Land Registration Act of 2002, if land is unregistered, it is similar under Schedule 1, Paragraph 2 of the Land Registration Act of 2002. And both provisions do recognize that a person who has a proprietary interest and has actual occupation may be able to bind a purchaser despite unregistered. Besides, the circumstances surrounding the inspection may strengthen your position, where Regent Estates inspected the property before purchasing it, but they did not enter the west wing for inspection because it was locked. A similar case can be compared to this, which is the case of Kingsnorth Finance against TZ, and the purchaser failed to investigate signs indicating that another person occupied the property. So the court held that the purchaser could have made further inquiries. Regent Estate could have taken reasonable steps to investigate the locked west wing. So have they done so, they will actually discover your occupation. Your position under unregistered land may appear stronger because of Schedule 1, Paragraph 2 protects the rights of person in actual occupation in the same way that Schedule 3, Paragraph 2 does for land that is registered. Unfortunately, the outcome is unlikely to differ because it does not matter if the land is registered or not, because the doctrine of overreaching remains as the decisive factor. As confirmed in the case of City of London Building Society against flat, when overreaching operates successfully, it takes priority for rights arising from the actual occupation. Therefore, regardless of whether Upton Abbey is registered or unregistered land, the fact that the purchase money was paid to two of your sisters, Charlotte and Caroline, as two trustees, it means that your equitable interest has been overreached. We now look at the position of Miss Amelia Gray. Sir William granted Amelia occupation of the East Wing, and she has been paying rent every month since 2020 to occupy the East Wing. Therefore, she enjoys exclusive possession. According to the case of Street against Montfort, the House of Lords held that where a person has exclusive possession for a term at rent, the arrangement is usually a lease regardless of what it is called. So Miss Amelia resides in the East Wing as her main residence. There is no evidence that the owner retained control over the premise or shared occupation with her. Her continued monthly payments also reinforce her position of a tenant through an existing tenancy agreement. Although rent is not a strict legal requirement, her regular monthly payments further support the existence of a tenancy. Taken together, these factors point more strongly towards a lease. An equitable lease will arise when there is a valid and enforceable agreement to grant a lease even when it has not been officially perfected. While this type of interest is not protected under Schedule 3, Paragraph 1 of the Land Registration Act of 2002, it may still get protection through actual occupation under Paragraph 2. The stronger argument is that Ms. Gray holds a legal tenancy. Section 52, subsection 1 of the Law of Property Act 1925 generally stipulates that a legal estate must be created by deed. Although Section 54, Section 2 provides an exception for short leases that commence immediately and do not exceed 3 years, Gray's agreement is unlikely to fall under Section 54, subsection 2, giving rise to a legal tenancy as her tenancy runs monthly. And according to Schedule 3, Paragraph 1 of the Land Registration Act of 2002, short legal leases are overriding interest and will automatically bind a new purchaser without registration. Therefore, Ms. Amelia Gray can rely on an equitable release. As a result, Regent Estates purchased a property subject to Ms. Gray's tenancy. Regent Estates become her new landlord. Mr. Hill, my advice is as follows. You have a strong claim based on constructive trust and proprietary estoppel because of what your father had promised you in the past. You rely on that promise and invested a substantial amount of money into maintaining the property. Therefore, you had an equitable interest in the property. There is also a strong argument that you remain in actual occupation despite your temporary absence due to religious surgery in the hospital. You had shown clear intention to return, and under normal circumstances, your equitable interest would be allowed to bind a purchaser as an overriding interest under Schedule 3, Paragraph 2 of the Land Registration Act of 2002. However, the major issue here is, in your case, that the doctrine of overreaching. Your sisters, Charlotte and Caroline, held the property as two trustees, and they were paid an amount of money to sell the property to Regent Estates Limited. And therefore, this automatically satisfies Section 2 and 27 of the Law of Property Act of 1925. Therefore, you are unlikely to succeed in asserting a right to remain in Upton Abbey against Regent Estates Limited. While Ms. Amelia Gray is in a more secure position as a tenant with exclusive possession, she holds a legal lease that does not exceed 7 years that continues to bind Regent Estates Limited. Accordingly, she has the right to remain in the East Wing, and Regent Estates becomes her new landlord. That's all for me. I hope you understand it more clearer now. Thank you.